Who can I call?
What department can I go to?
Where do I go?
We need help.
What can I do?
Welcome to In Touch with Pinellas County. I'm your host, Jane Merlin. Today, we're in touch to learn about the Homeless Leadership Board and the annual point-in-time survey. Susan Finlaw-Dusseault, the director of the Continuum of Care Services with the Pinellas County Homeless Leadership Board, is here to tell us about the program and how you can help. Welcome, Susan.
Thanks, Jane. It's nice to be here.
I'm glad that you could join us today and tell us more about the programs that you're working on. First, let's have you start by telling us about the Homeless Leadership Board.
Sure. It's a not-for-profit. It is, we're predominantly responsible for making sure certain systems are in place in the homeless arena, the homeless service arena in Pinellas. We are responsible for developing policies for the continuum and writing a grant which brings in federal money and other state grants, etc. But mostly we're just involved in making sure all the services interrelate and are as seamless as possible.
And what do you mean by continuum?
A continuum of services are all the different kinds of services that are in the either prevention of homelessness or the actual provision of services to the homeless individuals. So shelters, food banks, meal sites, day services, the mental health, substance abuse, all those organizations are involved, the health clinics and providing services to the homeless.
So quite an array of
It is.
services that are needed for the community. Tell us a little bit about the Homeless Leadership Board. Who do the members represent?
Sure. We have city and county officials on there, city council people, county official, county commissioner. We have faith-based, business-based, service expert, community advocates, and mayors and vice mayors. So policymakers that are interested. We have the sheriff, the public defender, so just all the different policymakers and individuals involved in providing homelessness services to the homeless.
And so this is really a county-wide effort.
Yes, absolutely.
And I know that one of the major initiatives that you have is the point-in-time survey. Tell us a little bit about the survey.
Sure. It is an event that the Housing and Urban Development, HUD, requires of any community that receives federal funding for the provision of homelessness services that conduct a county-wide count of the street homeless and also those that are residing in emergency transitional housing or safe havens. HUD considers that homeless. And so it is a community-wide event where we deploy hundreds of volunteers to go out and actually locate homeless folks and ask if they would participate in answering approximately 2-page survey. We utilize hundreds of volunteers. It's a huge effort that a planning committee has been working on since early February, and so it's a huge event that is very important to our community because it gathers a lot of relevant data, and it's the only survey that we do of the street homeless in the county. So it's data that's extensively used by policymakers and decision makers and grantees and extensively used in grant writing.
So the information really is being used by multiple organizations, not just what you provide to the HUD organization.
Absolutely. We report it to HUD, we report it to the state, and then it's used extensively by folks in our community.
And how do you go about actually finding the homeless individuals and families?
As strategically as possible. We start early on gathering information about where homeless populations congregate. We go to city parks, libraries, meal sites, food banks, just canvass the county where we know that they're likely to congregate. We work with our law enforcement officers, first responders, and also our street outreach teams to find out where they congregate. We know that there's a population of homeless families that reside subsidized in hotel motels, and so we reach out to those hotel motels and request that the families speak with us.
And that's one thing we probably should mention is the fact that there are such a large number of children and homeless families in the community.
Absolutely. In fact, that's our largest growing segment of homeless folks is our families with children. Last year we found approximately 2,500 children without homes in our point-in-time count. So that is, that old adage of the guy under the bridge is more the exception. It's children with families, it's unaccompanied youth, it's our veterans that are the homeless.
In fact, so many people that we pass during the day may actually be homeless, and we wouldn't necessarily know that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we talked about the importance of the survey in terms of the funding that you use that for. How else do you use that information? I mean, why else? What are the other reasons that the survey information is so important?
Well, it helps us understand gaps in services. It helps us understand how they got into their situation that they're in, why they choose to remain in that situation, and it helps us identify ways we might be able to end homelessness, or strategize ways to end their situation.
And try to lift them up out of the poverty that they're in.
And just kind of understand, we ask some pertinent information to help us understand how they became homeless in the first place, and what are the barriers that keep them homeless.
And to hopefully prevent future occurrences.
From others, experiencing that same fate.
So I'm curious to know about how some of the federal dollars are used locally in terms of the kind of services that we might recognize that have been made available.
Sure. We choose as a continuum to offer, to use the federal funding for shelter, and to help support operations of shelter. So permanent supportive housing for individuals, for families with children, survivors of domestic violence are also funded, folks that may have substance or mental health issues, but all the funding goes towards shelter beds and the operations of the staff that need to operate it.
And I'm sure that the need varies greatly depending upon the time of year. Is that true, or is it an ongoing problem?
It's an ongoing problem. I think that's something that folks assume, that there's a misconception, I think, that people move down here to be homeless, and our point in time does not support that at all. They're generally people that live in our community.
How can folks be involved in the point-in-time survey or with the effort that you're trying to do? Do they need any kind of special training?
Absolutely. We provide training to anyone that goes out. The data is so critical that we collect during this time. So it's about an hour and a half training. We generally do it a couple weeks in advance of the count so that it's relatively recent information. We talk about ways to approach our homeless residents and ask the questions and where to go in the survey and such. So it's very critical that people are trained. We provide them countywide, and usually have them during lunchtime or immediately following the workday. And like I said, have as community-wide. So like last year, we offered about 15 different trainings, but it is required that someone be trained to administer the survey before we deploy them out into our community.
And so somebody that might have if somebody identifies a special need that the individual might have, they'll be given the skills and resources of how to guide them for additional assistance.
Absolutely. We would usually just refer folks to 211 because that's our community resources. They can assist in referring an individual or family to any resource in our community.
And that's a good point. The 211 is a phone number that individuals can call
for resources in our community and referrals.
Largely social service type.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And then also you can, in order to volunteer, we also need your application, and probably the easiest way to do that is just go on our website, which is pinellashomeless.org, and fill out it literally takes less than a minute to fill out a volunteer application.
And again, the survey takes place every January.
The end of one day, the last 10 days of January.
So somebody that's watching that might not be able to help this year definitely for the future, keep that in mind for some
Absolutely.
additional help.
Absolutely.
Anything else we should know about the Homeless Leadership Board or the Point in Time survey?
I just, there's the advocate that says, there's 6 types of homeless people, and that's a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, or a son and daughter. Get informed, get involved. Go to our website and www.pinellashomeless.org and help us go out in the community in January. It'll be a life-changing event.
Well, and it's very important, as you mentioned earlier, it does help us identify the gaps in services that are needed to support the children and families that are homeless. And again, just want to reiterate the fact that homelessness is not what you may traditionally think it is, right?
Absolutely. So on any given day in Pinellas, almost 6,000 people are homeless. 2,500 of them are children. 17% of those are veterans that have served our country and are, as a result of that, have some pretty deep psychological or physical impediments. So it's important that we support these residents.
Well, thank you for the work that you're doing and for joining us today to tell us all about the Homeless Leadership Board and the Point in Time survey.
Thanks.
Glad you could make it today.
Good to be here.
Additional details about the Pinellas County Homeless Leadership Board is available by calling 727-528-5832. That's all for this edition. I'm Jane Merlin, hoping you stay in touch with us. Thanks for tuning in today. See you next time.